Part 2, Chapter 18 of Life and Lillian Gish. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by John Brandon. Life and Lillian Gish by Albert Bigelow Paine. Part 2, Chapter 18. Sad, Unprofitable Days. Lillian to Nell, June 30th, 1920. Do you know that I'm leaving Mr. Griffith? Way down east that we are on will be my last. I go with the Frohman Amusement Company between the 1st and 15th of August. I am to make 5 pictures a year for 2 years. If I make successful pictures, I shall make a lot of money. If I don't, well, kismet. It's all a gamble anyway. It was more of a gamble than she knew. Strictly speaking, there was no such thing as the Frohman Amusement Company. No Frohman, no amusement Frohman had anything to do with it. That was just a part of the gamble. Griffith apparently thought it all right, and so did his brother, for it was the latter who made the connection. Had Lillian made inquiries on her own account, her eyes might have been opened sooner and less expensively. Griffith and Lillian parted on the friendliest terms. Griffith said to her, "You know the business as well as I do. You should be making more money than you can make with me." He did not say, "Stay with me and share in the prosperity which you have brought and will bring me." No one could be more successful than we two together. To a simple-minded literary person, this would seem to have been the wisest course. Lillian thinks he had perhaps grown tired of seeing her around. She did not make 5 pictures for the Frohman Company, or even 1. She did begin one, World Shadows by Madame de Grésac, who claims here a word of introduction. Somewhat earlier, Lillian had met this gifted French lady, goddaughter of Victorien Sardou, wife of the singer Victor Maurel, herself a dramatist, who had written French, English, and Italian plays for Regine, Doucet, Marie Tempest, and others of distinction. Familiar with the best literary and art circles in Paris, considerably older than Lillian, small, red-haired, quick of speech, French, in the best meaning of the term, she was a revelation to the younger woman, who, in spite of her years on the stage and screen, was a good deal of a primitive as to world knowledge and art in its less obvious forms. The two were mutually fascinated. Madame de Grésac, dazed and delighted by Lillian's gifts and innocence; Lillian, stirred and awakened and sometimes shocked by the Frenchwoman's brilliant mentality, her knowledge of life, her freedom of expression. In a brief time they were devoted friends, confidants. When the so-called Frohman Company wanted a picture for Lillian, Madame de Grésac agreed to prepare one. She did so, but about the time rehearsal was under way, Lillian's first and only salary check from the company was returned from the bank, unpaid, no funds. They explained to her that certain backers had disappointed them. It may be so. At all events, there was a hitch somewhere in this particular gamble. Lillian carried on as a number of players had come with her from the Griffith staff, and as they seemed to be getting their money, she could not leave them in the lurch. But of course the end came. Their pay also stopped. The thing that had never really existed ceased to function. It was all a fiasco, a tragedy. So many tragedies in the show business. World Shadows was discarded. It made no difference between the two friends. If anything, they were closer than before. The day was coming, not so many years ahead, when they would combine in another play, a success. Madame's husband, Victor Morel, besides being a singer, had a passion for painting, and persuaded Lillian to pose for him. Lillian, with a view of some time going back to the stage, greatly desired voice culture. They agreed that in exchange for half an hour's posing, he would devote half an hour to training her voice. She had then finished Way Down East, which Morel seemed to love. He watched it time and again. Then he had her go into a separate room, a dark room, and convey the feeling of it, paint the picture, as it were, with her voice. This was priceless training. It gave her voice a quality and value it had not possessed before. From Morel, she said afterwards, "I got my consonants." Except for the triumph of Way Down East, a triumph not easy to understand in this more crowded, more inattentive day, that year of 1920 was hardly a cheerful one. For one thing, Mrs. Gish was in poor health. Dorothy had taken her to Italy, which might have been well enough, but for the circumstances of their return. It was the tragedy of Bobby Harron that brought them back. On September 1st, alone in his hotel room, Bobby shot himself. For years he had been as one of the family. From the days of the Biograph Company, he had taken part in pictures with both Lillian and Dorothy. He had shared the hardships and dangers of those days and nights of bomb and shrapnel in London and France. He had been a brother to them. To Dorothy, for a time at least, something more. Now he was dead. Exactly what happened will always be a mystery. Lillian in Philadelphia, where they were opening Way Down East, wrote Nell, "These have been terrible days, the worst I have ever known. You've heard about it by this time, I imagine, about Bob. He was in his room, unpacking an old trunk, when a pistol fell out and exploded, the ball going through his lung. That was September 1st at 10:30 in the morning. He was taken to Bellevue, where he seemed to improve. We all held such high hopes until Sunday morning at 7:55 he breathed his last. Mother and Dorothy were someplace in Italy. Could get no word to them until Wednesday. They are taking the first boat home, which leaves today." Bobby had been a Catholic, and when his mother and sister arrived, not knowing that he was dead, it fell to Lillian, with a priest, to meet them and break the news. Later she took them home and looked after them for several weeks. End of Part 2, Chapter 18. Recording by John Brandon.